Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast. A bit of excitement tonight because there's actually something to bloody talk about, which makes a pleasant change, doesn't it, gentlemen? Donkey and Macca, how you going?
Yeah, no, doing very well, mate. And as you say, it's really good to come on here and have something to talk about for a change.
Absolutely. Donk, how's the lovely Northern Territory, mate? You're all closed in, borders are shut, everything's fucking locked down. How's it going?
Oh, it's beautiful times up here. I had my first beer at a pub on Friday. Then I had my second beer, and that's the end of the story. I'll tell other people.
Yeah, yeah. Look, thanks to everyone for joining us on the various platforms. We've got Patrick on YouTube. G'day, mate. We've got the usual suspects on Discord. Don't forget, if you want to join us on the chat and you're a Discord user, you can log into the CrowCast server. I'll chuck the link in a second in the chat. Alternatively, and probably easier for most people, you can just basically go to aflcrowcast.com, go to the live chat site. You'll get a feed from us, and you'll also get a little window that you can join our Discord chat without even joining up on the server. So you can also chat to us, obviously, on Facebook and YouTube. I think Moyley's there as well. And PJ Crows, how you going? Bloody hell. Great to see you, mate.
Getting the band back together.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit rude. No Nicky tonight, no Peter J tonight, but lots to talk about. So, look, why don't we crack into it straight away? And I guess the first topic was going to be moving up to Queensland, but news dropped this afternoon that's off now. Yeah,
no, that was big news, wasn't it? That the SA government, with the health minister, is now allowing the boys, as of Monday, to, like the other teams in Victoria, etc., to be able to engage in physical contact training. So
that's right.
You say, well, big deal, but that is a big deal because that saves the boys having to fly up on the weekend to Queensland, because they can say it's been the next 3 weeks training here, and then it may go even one step further, because the Premier is hinting that he has asked the AFL if they would, and as he said, the AFL does the programming, not him, but he thought it would be very ideal to have round 2 at Adelaide Oval as a showdown between Adelaide and the Balfour pie-loving Port Adelaide.
Well, I thought showdowns were off because Kochie came out and said he didn't want to be in the same bloody venue as us. And I just assumed that extended to not having showdowns anymore because they wouldn't want to be on the same oval.
Yeah, he heard the stories of the Ramsgate and he doesn't want to get pantsed at another pub together.
No, and they like Balfour's pies, according to him, as he was eating his lobster and sipping his Pinot Noir. I mean, what he
no, he has a Balfour's and a bloody tinny, doesn't he? Isn't that what he has? He's a Port Adelaide man.
Weren't they supported by Villies or whatever?
Well, that's
whatever that one was.
No, I think we were. But yeah, it comes out and says, Port Adelaide are Balfour's eaters and, whatever, and we're the Chardonnay sipping quiche eaters. And I wonder how all the Port Adelaide supporters in the eastern suburbs of Norwood felt being called bogans, basically, by their chairman. How ridiculous.
Well, the irony is that, as a Crow support, I hate quiche. I don't even eat the stuff. Man, I do love a meat pie, but I think his taste is poor, and going for Balfour's a lot better meat pies around than Balfour's.
Also, quiche is just an egg pie anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're the culinary genius, and for anyone who wants proof of that, follow Donkey Magoo on Twitter. He's
good. He's good.
It's a salivating sensation, Donkey.
Yeah. I never cook quiches. I do it the occasional frittata. That's because that's the level we play at. But just quietly on this full contract training thing, could the SA government advise the Crows that we could have been doing full contract training for the last couple of years? Because I would love to have seen us lay a few tackles.
Yeah, well, it's going to be something new, isn't it? Full contact. Apparently they've had to chuck out the playbook and start again.
Mate, it's contact, not contract.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they're contract players for sure.
Well, the other good thing too is that doesn't allow them to start shagging again, because one of the edicts to come out of the out of the hub was that they weren't allowed to actually get busy.
Well,
So,
putting it as politely and bluntly, but as politely as possible, that once they are up there in Queensland, as they refer to it as the bonk ban, they're not. They may be very successful with the ladies, but they're not allowed to bring them back to their room. And but of course, now they've got 3 weeks where they can, maybe 4 weeks where they can avoid the bonk ban and get fit another way.
Yeah, there'd be a few blokes fairly happy about that, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so.
But look, I guess it is from serious just for a moment. It means that there's less disruption on the pre-season. The short pre-season that we have. The travel up there. I'm assuming that. I'm not quite sure. You guys might be able to tell me. I'm not quite sure how that sits for games though, because we're still going to have to travel to Victoria. So we've got a contact training clearance, but wasn't half the reason we were going to Brisbane because their border was open and therefore we could play games up there? Are we still going to be flying to Brisbane to get? I don't quite get that part of it.
I don't know that their border's open. I don't think the border's open, but they will allow football games to fly in and out. That's my understanding, whether I'm right or not. But I think that's what it is.
But we haven't actually been given clearance to FIFO, have we, Donkey?
No, that's not my understanding yet either. But the whole thing about this sort of evolving situation is that even a couple of weeks later can mean a changing in what the rules are. So if they do the 3 weeks of training and then they play here and don't have to leave, then the situation could be that the moving between places with exemption might be acceptable to the HO, the health officer, city health officer by them.
Yeah.
So it could just be if you do it this way, it drags it out, saves you doing that, and then we can get back to kind of normal in X amount of time.
See, the boys in chat who know more than all of us and probably should be doing this show, they're saying that it just means that we can train here longer, but once we go up to Queensland, we've got to stay there. So we'll be up there rounds 1 to 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. We play inside the hub. Yeah, you play inside the hub up there. And then we don't really know what's going to happen after that.
Yeah, that's
right. And it may well be that we have to move into a Melbourne-based hub after that.
Yeah, well, maybe if the border restrictions aren't relaxed. And look, here's the crux of it. And I know this has been done to death on socials and all the rest of it, but Victoria are experiencing outbreak after outbreak, and yet we're wanting to base the majority of the games in that state. It doesn't actually make any logical sense, does it?
Well, no.
Depends on what your logic is. Do you want to protect as many Victorian teams as possible? I mean, get real weird.
No, my attitude towards the whole thing is that I actually admire the courage of Professor Floria to do what she did, because at this stage we live in a state where I think it is the best place in the world to be at the moment as far as COVID goes.
And no, you're not a state; you're a territory.
Yeah. you might be the best territory, mate, but we are the best state. And as
got through that one. Wow.
As Professor Floria said, she doesn't want to import COVID from the states like Victoria and New South Wales, where we've seen videos of them absolutely breaching, they even protesting against the various restrictions, and if they're idiots enough to keep the thing going, then I'm with Professor Floria. That comes before footy, and as far as I'm concerned, the hub in Queensland would be the only place I would allow if I was the Premier to allow these people to go, because at least there seems to be some sort of responsibility up there, and their cases are very, very few and very, very rare. So I think its first 4 or 5 weeks is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work out after that, though, because I have this horrible feeling they might have to experience being in a hub in Victoria, because we won't allow them to come to our state. And because I reckon that's going to be the very, very last thing that's going to be relaxed out of all the restrictions.
I mean, if you wanted to present, like, if the logic is that you want to get a season away so that you can make some money and salvage something, then it doesn't, forget the Vic bias for a minute. But if you're Gillon McLachlan and you're just desperate to get a viable season away and get your sponsorship money and your broadcast money in, and, you know, keep the wolves from the door, then surely you don't base 2/3 of your rounds or 2/3 of your competition in the state where they're most at risk. To me, it's a no-brainer. They have to get out of there, and we know they never will do it. But I can see as a consequence of that, if things continue to escalate in Victoria, and there's no reason to suggest that they won't, because they've only just started testing in the last couple of weeks to any reasonable amount. You know, there's a high likelihood that someone's going to get infected, and as soon as someone's infected, that's game over, really.
Well, it's not really going to be, because it was going to be that way. But Gillon has come out and said that they've got to sort of be in groups of 8, so that it might knock out a group of 8. So if that person's involved in that group of 8 in terms of socialising. They've got all these stupid restrictions and that's one of them. So that it won't stop the whole series. So it could mean that a team could lose 8 players all at once because one player becomes infected.
Yeah.
But that would mean, and then their squad would be 36 rather than 44.
Yeah. Look, I don't know, mate. I just think they're taking a massive risk. And I know logistically, it's easier to remain based in the state where the majority of players are. So logistically, it makes sense from that perspective. But in terms of risk management, they're taking a huge risk in my opinion. And let's hope, for footy's sake, as much as we bash the AFL and Victoria and all the rest of it, no one wants to see footy fall over.
We don't. But the other thing too, though, Fiend, is that really, I think the only reason we're having a season is because of the very reasons you just said before. And it's all financially based in the sense of if they don't, the AFL is going to be in a very, very poor shape. And still not going to be in the greatest of shapes after the season. And they also now, in terms of negotiating with the TV stations for future rights, then they don't hold the upper hand anymore either. So I think football is going. We haven't even spoken about that, but the way that football's played, the amount of support staff, etc., is going to be absolutely different. We might actually get a better brand of footy out of it.
Well, it would be 90s footy, won't it, Don?
Yeah, we go back to earthy stuff. It'd be good. Bit more fatiguing. Maybe a bit more focused on actually. Rather than all the extra, biometric science sort of stuff that Warnie think ruin cricket, and maybe get back to kicking the ball to a bloke with your jumper on it and then you catching it, and then kicking it to another one of your blokes with a jumper on it and them catching it.
Yeah.
I reckon if we can get back to that, I'd be fucking pretty happy.
Unique stuff.
Yeah.
One-on-one contests and a bit of space, and like you said, Donkey, the biggest element I think that's been missing in football for the last 7 or 10 years has been that element of fatigue. We don't want our players to get tired because we want the stars to be able to shine, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Fatigue is a major part of football. It's an endurance sport, and it used to be such a factor, didn't it, back in the day? Gutsing it out.
Pick and choose what you did and all that sort of other stuff. And
it goes further than that, because one of the reasons we don't want fatigue is that the coaches are so defence orientated and defence minded about everything. That's why they want the players to be fit so they can flood back and then also run forward as well. But flooding back is the first thing, and as we know, when they were doing that, it just knock the scores around a billion, and you don't get what Donkey's talking about. Like a standard footy that as we used to see in a long time ago, back in the 90s and early 2000s, and which was probably preferable to watch from a spectator point of view.
Yeah, and you lose the. Whereas some people want star or the contested ball king star, but they always starred.
Yeah.
But the bloke that could hold another bloke off with one arm and take a one arm market, on the wing, like that's gone. Or maybe not necessarily the wing, but the half forward flank where it all breaks down every time and rebounds over your head. It's just it's just I think it's lost the nuance by having the extra running. The team plays one thing, but, the NBA for a long time banned zone defense because, it's too easy. Realistically. You shut them out too easy. Yeah. So, anyway, I think we'll see some good stuff.
Well, I reckon what it leads to in the end, if the coaches continue to kill the game strategically, inevitably we're going to have a line down the middle of the ground, dividing the ground half in, half out. And I don't think anyone really wants to see that. But if you need to keep people in an area of the ground, then really that's the easiest way to do it, isn't it? And let's hope it just doesn't come to that. And maybe COVID-19 might have a silver lining in terms of AFL in that because of the reduced spending and therefore the reduced capacity to drill players into the ground. We might actually return to a bit of that without manipulating it artificially.
Sorry, Doc, go on.
I was going to say, and hopefully AFL House has got less people working in it, so they don't have 500 people sitting around working out what fucking new rule they can bring in next year and how to fucking interpret it.
Well, they want to get rid of Hocking, don't they? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, he is a dead loss. Absolute dead loss he is.
I reckon if you spoke to Victorians, they wouldn't think so, but from an outside of Victoria perspective, I haven't found him to be any value to the game whatsoever.
Talking about Victoria and hypocrisy, do you remember when it was being mooted as Adelaide being possibly one of the hubs or the hub? And the Victorian media were up in arms and screaming, that's unfair, there's an unfair advantage. You can't do that. And they don't give a flying shit that we've got to fly up to Queensland and be up there for umpteen weeks, etc.
Well, also the contact training. Western Australia was allowed to contact training 3-4 weeks ago. Yeah. Or it feels like 3-4 weeks ago in COVID time. Might have been fucking 6 days for them, but we haven't been able to. But Victoria was allowed to start this week. Like it fucking kills your brain.
Well, look, the last thing I reckon it exposes, just before we move on from this topic, and we sort of almost got there a second ago, but PJ Crows made a really good statement on chat about the absolute need for the AFL to get their broadcast rights, satisfied, and it shows you how reliant on one source of revenue the AFL is, and how all eggs are really in the broadcast revenue basket. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for the AFL over the next decade, is to diversify their revenue streams, because it doesn't, like as we've seen this year, it doesn't take much to knock the shit out of that, does it? And it's very fragile when you look at it that way.
But I don't know that's 100% fair. Mac is the money whiz, but it's not just their broadcast rights. They've lost every dollar that goes through a gate, and then all their sponsorship that's attached to all those dollars too. Like that all was conditional on the fact they were getting paid sponsorship. So they've lost. It is actually multiple streams that they've lost. It's just
but the main one is broadcast, isn't it?
It starts at the broadcast, because that's worth was about 600 million. Sorry. They're talking that's probably going to drop to about 400 million. And then, of course, they're talking about shortening the game. And certainly taking just this season, for example, there's going to be a pro rata situation of how much that brings in from the TV stations, because with shorter games and with less games, of course, you've got less sponsorship in terms of advertising, which affects them. in terms of the clubs, because they're going to get less exposure because of the shortened season. There's going to be less sponsors wanting to sponsor them. Yeah. And they're not going to also commit there very heavily for next year either, because of the fact there will be some good, solid, bolted-on ones, but there's going to be others that just won't do it because they don't know what the situation's going to be like next year. We might be still going through this whole thing next year because there's every chance of getting a second wave of the way Victoria and New South Wales are going at the moment.
Well, not just that. Like, I think every pandemic that's ever happened has always had a second wave, so it's not even like it's a when, not an if, almost.
The only advantage we've got is that we can, as an island, we can keep the bastards out, but
my island, but there'll be so much pressure on opening up some of that stuff because I think number 2 or 3 of our export industry is actually tourism.
It is.
It's like we're in a pretty tough space. But Vardy Magic brings up a good point too. So I don't know. There's AFL House itself that's worried about their income, but it's also I think the big problem is the clubs that can't function without the dividend they get from the TV right, and it's actually how many clubs might go under. So it's not necessarily the AFL as the umbrella, but the clubs underneath it that are going to be that need the games probably more so than the AFL.
Yeah, but I mean, in that sense, the AFL have created this monster because they've created this totalitarian system where you've got a salary cap, you've got a draft, you've got the clubs falling under AFL licenses, you've got the AFL basically manipulating everything into an entertainment product rather than a fair and stable and equal competition. And so, like any company, if you're going through hard times and you're scratching for revenue, what do? You drop off the least productive parts of your business, don't you? And unfortunately for the Victorian clubs, they are, by and large, the least productive parts of the business. And there's, I saw Jeff Kennett come out during the week and he's made a couple of little snide comments about this with regards to the bottom performing teams like St Kilda and North Melbourne needing to start to prove their financial bona fides, or else, they could be on the chopping block. And the significance of Kennett saying that is he's actually on the committee that is charged with steering the AFL through this mess. So he's not talking off the cuff. That's a little sideways whisper to those clubs to say, look, you better get your shit together because it's being discussed. And so it should be discussed. I mean, it should have been discussed 10 bloody years ago, but we all know why it wasn't. But it certainly will now they won't have any choice.
Well, that also raises the question of the Gold Coast. Are they going to keep on just pouring? I mean, they've already poured in over $500 million into the Gold Coast.
I know, and they're not going to get their match day sales anymore. That's an extra $20 or $30 a week.
Yeah, I know. Less the traffic controller guy that's got to stand at the entrance of the car park.
Yeah. So that one guy down net $50 by the end of the game.
That's right.
What do you mean the traffic controller guy? What traffic?
Yeah, but I mean that's a fair point. Because we all understand why they want to go for Gold Coast, but again, a business has got to get a bit lean in tough times, and the Gold Coast are just a money sink. Imagine what they could have done with $500 million in the competition in the years that Gold Coast have been in the competition. $500 million.
That's a huge amount of money when you look at it. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. And
what you're looking at is the potential spend on grassroots footy, Macca, or at least a good portion of that. You're talking about the state leagues. You're talking about pathways for juniors, investment into junior footy, etc., etc. Those are the things that have suffered because of the Gold Coast. So in their efforts to try and get kids engaged up in Queensland, they've actually cost the code. They've been willing, I think, to bleed a little bit in the heartland states, but I don't think they can afford to bleed anymore in the heartland states. And with Gold Coast being a money sink, you just think, how long can that go on? And I don't think it can go on much longer.
Well, I was talking to you off air. You know, like you got the WAFL.
Oh, sorry, mate, I had you on mute.
Thanks, bloody
Sorry,
heap.
just taking a piss. Sorry.
No, well, as I said to you off air before, the WAFL is also a money drainer as well.
Yeah.
But it is something that is growing and eventually will grow into something. I think into something very, very strong in its own right. And if it was a toss up between the Gold
You mean
Coast
the AFLW, not the WAFL?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
West Australian Football League.
I'm being dyslexic at the moment.
Yeah, the AFLW.
AFLW. If it's a toss-up between that and the Gold Coast, I would pop the Gold Coast and continue with AFLW and grow that because, you know, that will get the future of the sport, bring more sponsors, etc. And then the Gold Coast will. So I think that's got a massive future long term. But at the moment, it's a drain of money. And I did say to you, will they be able to continue that at the same rate next year? I don't know because they're going to be really, really tight for dough.
Well,
really
it might delay any further expansion, Donkey, you reckon?
Delay the expansion?
With the women's clubs?
Like new teams.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't possibly think about expansion right now. You just can't add costs right now.
No,
as Macca said, you can't. It's all about survival, and you know they don't know what next year's going to look like. If you know this is how badly they're struggling, you know, after losing footy for, I think it's up to about 60 days now. We've been, 60 days. So if they're 60 days into this, they're, you know, looking at that. I think you just got to put the brakes on all sorts of things.
If the AFL were really dead set serious, they would get Deloitte or someone through. They get their risk management guys through, and just restructure the whole thing, because we've seen, I mean, all right, a pandemic is quite extreme, and certainly the most extreme set of circumstances that I've seen in my life. And Macca, you wouldn't have seen anything as extreme as this since World War One, would you?
No, well, you know, I was out fighting, so I didn't really see it. You know?
Well, it was the Spanish flu.
Yeah,
where did they go on the plague?
Bubonic plague, yeah. But I mean,
the Boer War was tough,
yeah. But really, you know, it has shown how vulnerable the AFL is. And if they're dead set serious, they'll get a compliance guy through, a risk guy through, and tidy all that up. And it really it will be a measure of how rational and unbiased AFL House is as to how the AFL looks in the next 2 to 3 years, because there really is no excuse for not culling teams in Victoria now, in my opinion. There really isn't. You're not going to get any performance out of St Kilda. You're not going to get any performance out of North Melbourne. You're probably going to have to shift the Bulldogs out to Ballarat. You know, they're decisions. They're hard decisions that have to be made. But if ever there was an out clause for the AFL to make those decisions, go, well, sorry, we've got no choice. Now is the time. Now is the time. Well, you know, they just have to do it.
You know, I was a money man all my life, and at a high level. And if I was running the AFL, like, this is what I would be doing, and I know they won't even consider it. But for me, it would be go back into being a 14-team competition, and the 4 big drainers would be just eliminated.
Yeah.
Because they just take huge amount of money out of the system. You say, and then they're worrying about their TV rights. But what you do is you make it a 26-game season, where the 14 teams play each other home and away. So you've got a balanced competition where nobody's getting favoured. So then you probably can then juggle your finals a little bit as well to get an extra final in there. And I worked it out financially, and it's not that much different from having the current structure in terms of what the overall exposure on TV is.
Yeah.
And and you've got rid of all the money drainers.
Well, and let's face it, Channel 7 don't want St Kilda versus North Melbourne on a Sunday afternoon. No bastard's going to watch that anyway. So why have that? Why have that fixture? You know, why have those clubs? They're not going to make you any money, even broadcasting wise.
Yep, and you know, I would actually, you know, you say, well, who are the 4 clubs? Well, the Gold Coast for me goes straight away. St Kilda goes straight away, and North Melbourne goes straight away. They're gone.
Yep.
And then I don't know the balance sheets of the and the profit and loss of the all the others, but the very, very worst one that's been a drainer for a long time, and that's possibly Port Adelaide. But I'm not suggesting that Port Adelaide go.
I am.
But I'm actually putting it on them in the fact that they will be given. Somebody else will go, but they will be put on notice that if they don't get themselves into a situation where they're not a drainer of the AFL, then they will go, and then another thing will come in its place.
Yeah, they need to know that they're not. You know, there's lifters and leaners, and if they're going to be a lifter, they get to stay, and they want to keep being a leaner, then they got to go.
Well, and I think that's the key, Donkey. And I think if I was running the show and got the risk compliance guys in, that's what they'd be saying to me. You got to have, each club has got to be a contributor. And at the moment, these clubs that you mentioned, Macca, they're not contributing other than supplying the broadcasters with enough rounds, 9 rounds a week. In terms of what
you increase the number of rounds in.
Exactly. I agree 100%. So whether they have those conversations or not remains to be seen. There's a lot of scepticism in chat, and I've got to say g'day to Jack on Facebook, 1990 Crow, for those who frequent Big Footy. I don't know why are you in lockdown for 52 days in a hotel, Jack? I'd like to know that story, but thanks for chatting away.
Is it COVID related or something else?
Well, maybe it might be overseas. I'm not sure, but
well, talking about the chat, he's the only bugger I can see talking. Well, okay.
No, they're all J-Max there. Vardy's. What are you talking about?
On my chat, I've refreshed it 3 times. Like 1990 Crows privilege is the only one I can see.
What are you looking at?
The live chat. Yeah, on Spreaker, the live chat.
No, don't look on Spreaker. Look on bloody. No one uses Spreaker anymore, Macca.
Yeah,
you haven't been on for a while. We're on. We all chat on Discord.
I haven't been on for a month, mate.
That's right.
No. You did this change like ages ago. This is not a new thing.
Come on, Don. Where is it on then?
Jesus.
Well, so Jack and his partners have both had COVID-19, and his partner still has it. So we do wish we don't want to make light of Jack anymore. We wish you and your wife Jack all the best, and thanks for joining in.
So we're all there. What side are all the external wise heads on then?
Jesus, Macca, they're on Discord.
Okay.
If you click live show chat.
Come on to the show.
Yeah. I'm on Discord, yeah. Where do I go now?
We'll just have a 5-second tech support break while Macca gets up to speed.
I'm there.
This is actually a set play, guys, listening at home. In case there's a few of the others that aren't on here too.
Yeah, oh my God.
This is a live play. Have you tried turning it off and turning it on again, Macca?
Yeah, that's right.
Carry on.
Right. Anyway, look, the financial discussion, I don't want to get too bloody dry about all of this, but it leads on to something that's reasonably topical, certainly on Big Footy. And that's what's going on at the Crows in terms of, and other AFL clubs, I guess, but specifically for us, the Crows, in terms of memberships and refunds and all the rest of it. Because the Crows have issued an email out this week saying, you've got until tomorrow, I think it is, to nominate whether you're going to stay on board or whether you want a refund for your season ticket for the 2020 year. But they haven't actually, as far as I'm aware, they haven't actually come out and said what happens if you request a refund and whether that means that you relinquish your seat. Macca, have you got any insight?
Are you talking about the AFL?
No, I'm talking about the Adelaide Crows memberships.
Well, the AFL, the Adelaide Oval memberships, they made it very clear what the situation
talking about
was.
the Crows. Talking about
the Crows have said nothing. They have said nothing.
Well, they've sent an email out early on Monday, I think.
Yeah, I read it, and I didn't see anything in there at all.
Well, there was nothing. All it said was you got to tell us by Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, but didn't say what they were going to do.
No, that's right, and that's my point. So there's a lot of confusion at the moment with regards to people that might want or need refunds for their 2020 membership / season ticket, who have no idea what's going to happen if they relinquish or request a refund in terms of whether they get first rights to that ticket in 2021.
Yeah, no, it's very, very up in the air with the Crows, and I think they have said that they're going to clarify it in the next week or so. But
but people have got to tell them by tomorrow. So what's the point in clarifying next week?
I think their idea is just pushing it out.
Macca, this is disgusting. This is disgusting by the club. They've got people. They've got 50,000 odd people that have bought quote unquote bloody memberships, right? Which are actually nothing but reserve seats. No one's going to be able to get to a game, most likely, this season. People are therefore, under Australian law, entitled to a refund. But the Crows are basically hedging their bets and almost holding people over a barrel by the implication that if you request a refund and essentially relinquish your 2020 ticket, that you go back into the drawer and you're no longer a member and no longer a season ticket holder. I think that's bloody disgusting by the Crows.
It was pretty hard to argue with you. It is very unfair, I think. But I think what they're trying to do is just outlast people to hang on to the money, aren't they?
Yeah, but that's no way to treat your freaking members, Mac, especially after what's been going on over the last 2 years, the bloody disaster that people have hung on through, to then treat your membership and do the whole emotive, support your club and all that bullshit. What about them bloody giving something back to their fans instead of all this ongoing crap from administration, and actually having some empathy, which is something that the AFL players and the AFL clubs have lacked through this whole thing, having some empathy for their supporter who maybe scrapes together $600 a year just to go and see the Crows, and that's all they can afford for the whole freaking year, and that person might have just lost their job, or their wife or husband's lost their job, and they're struggling through real life scenarios rather than just, are we going to have a football club or not? And the Crows can't even front up to their membership and say, look, we'll refund you if you need, and don't worry, you'll have first dibs to your ticket or your membership in 2021. So don't worry, we don't want you to worry, and we'll give you money back if you need it. What's wrong with the club doing that?
Look, I think that's what should be done. That's being open and transparent, and that's what should be done.
I'm really pissed off about it. It's the amount of goodwill that gets sucked out of the supporter base by the Adelaide Crows administration is borderline criminal. And look, the simple fact is they call it a membership, Macca. It's not a membership, is it? It's not a membership. It's a reserve seat. Correct?
Well, there are two types, of course. There's the ones with reserve seats, and then there's others just memberships where you don't actually go to the games.
Yeah, but those memberships don't cost anything.
No, they do.
Yes, they do. Yeah, I pay.
What, $50?
I can give it a go.
Hey. No, it's more than that. What is it, Don?
90 or something. But yeah, it's up there.
So they don't cost anything. $90, nothing. All you're buying is a vote.
I see it as a bloody donation.
Mate,
really.
I've bought a lot of votes in my life, and I'm
it's a whole nother podcast, Don.
I think there's two parts to it. One is, I think you're right. There's a part where there's a ticket component, and there's lots of really big things as part of the ticket component, and I think this year should just be a free for all. If you can't do it, it's just this year's a write off, and you've got your rights back next year. But I also think you should probably have a contribution to the club, if that makes sense. So there should be a bit reserved where.
Why can't they just say, all right, your membership comprises of these components: a membership, which is worth $100, say, round numbers.
Yeah.
Your reserve ticket, which is worth $400, say, and admin fees, which is $50 or whatever. So.
Back again.
Oh, did you? I didn't even know you'd gone, mate.
Well, it's nice to be missed.
Yeah.
I noticed back. I missed you, mate.
Well, you just had a technical hitch there.
Right. Mrs. Macca belt you over the head for being an idiot.
No. She's a very lovely woman.
Oh, we know that. Long suffering.
I'm with you.
Lovely, long, patient woman.
Yeah. But I think you're right, Fiend. I think there should be a membership component. I reckon you should have a seat reservation bit. Like, you should have three options. You either hold your ticket in full and you get to go to every game this year. You reserve your spot for being able to have first choice next year, which should be a bit higher. And then you've just got a membership. It's got a membership and a reserve function, and then you can just opt out completely, depending on which one you want to do.
Yeah, I think I'd go on that, Don.
And because
that's what West Coast's done.
People are fucking bored and they're going to want to go to the footy. So whether there's membership tickets or not, and it might actually bring more people to the games that haven't been for a long time. I remember when I was a kid growing up, my dad's excuse for me never taking me to the footy was that we didn't have tickets and it was still hard. So, so I'm sure there's people out there in the great unwashed suburbs of Norwood that never get to a game because they don't have a membership ticket, and maybe this will open it up a bit more.
Yeah. No, that would be forward thinking. And what the Crows like to do is control everything, Donkey. We know that. They want to control the media message. They want to control everything. And what you're suggesting is, whilst it's perfectly reasonable as far as I can see, it again doesn't give them the certainty that they require for their own, their own comfort. But I think the way the Adelaide Crows have treated their membership once again has been severely tone deaf, lacking any sort of empathy, and borderline breaking consumer law. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, the interesting thing about we've had, the Crows have had various problems over the last few years, and there are constant factors that never change over that period of time. And we're talking about Chapman. We've got Chapman, and we've got Fagan, and we've got Smart. I mean, they're constant factors, and yet we keep stuffing up all the time.
Let's talk about Nigel Smart for a second.
Oh, Tits McGee.
What in the hell is he thinking? Honestly.
Yeah, well, I think there was a rush of blood, but it wasn't necessarily the head.
Well, it was to a head.
I must miss that. What
so, Macca, there's this thing called the internet, right? And on the internet...
we're actually on it at the moment, mate, yeah.
No. On the internet, young people like to stream their video games that they're playing on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, etc.
too, I think.
Yeah. And other people like to stream things that are more general in nature. Just chatting or other stuff.
I do it myself, mate.
Yeah. And a young lady who has an association with... I don't even know whether she does have an association with Legacy. Donk? I don't think she did she?
I thought it was just a random picture.
Just
of
a random on Twitch, yeah. A young lady, I think she was only, 19 or 20 or whatever?
Yeah.
And Nigel's
old
made...
Uncle Nige. Yeah. He's had a bit of a twitch himself.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a twitch and left a comment that was certainly... it wasn't over the top, but it was certainly... There was a certain double meaning to it. It expressed his appreciation of her form. And I just thought, as a COO of a major sporting club who has been charged with the responsibility of running our esports teams, which is basically right in that space, right in that Twitch space, for him to come out and be such a bloody teenager, what the hell? Is he competent? Have we been hiding him all this time?
Well, we've hidden him ever since he made some remark. I think it was about Port Adelaide many years ago.
Let's be truthful here. We've given him the portfolio of the only thing that is almost unfuck-upable. Like esports, I know have a big problem with esports, but it is an absolutely huge and growing thing, and it is growing at an exponential rate. You wouldn't even know if he was fucking it up because it would just still grow anyway. Like it's a huge thing, and it's corona-proof. It's still going. Like there's Nige has been parked. I think they thought Nige was going to do great things, and then he got parked.
Yeah, look, I think you're right, Donk. But Jesus,
Nigel's not so smart.
Not so smart at all. So, just another reason why I'm so disappointed that the review last year didn't look at the other side of footy operations, because we've seen since the review, nothing much has changed, and certainly there's been continual tone-deaf fuck-ups from the people who didn't get reviewed, Donkey and Macca.
Yeah.
People like Smarty and
Chapman and
Fagan.
You're quite right. But it is that level, isn't it? That's the level where I think there's a lot of responsibility falls on their shoulders, and we get a lot of things wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm convinced that Schutz is the worst communications manager in the world, and he just can't. He can't run across. Can't run positiveness, and he just doesn't understand. He can't take the will of the people, of his stakeholders, the broader stakeholders, which are us, and convert them and give a message that is coherent and in sync with what people are wanting to know.
Yep.
And that's the great failing.
Yep. Anyway, look, that's probably enough of the bagging of the club. On the plus side, the AFL did do us a favour this week by banning Benny Hart for 6 weeks. We should
have appealed. We should have appealed.
We should have said
that wasn't long enough. We should have appealed.
Talk about a reverse penalty, Jesus. Oh, it's almost as good as getting our draft picks back from Tippergate. Bloody hell. Look, we feel for Benny Hart.
No, I don't.
Yeah, nah, I'm lying. So look, what else is there?
Well, there's not necessarily the Crows, but the Jack Stevens one's a very interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, I just want to be really careful around that one, Mac.
No, I mean, I would be extremely careful.
Yeah.
But stabbed in the chest and refusing to cooperate with the police. And my understanding is that he lives down Geelong, and it happened reasonably late at night in town. And all I can say, and not say get anybody into trouble, is that I think it's being assumed that he knows the person that stabbed him, and by not saying anything, unfortunately, there are two, and I'm not going to repeat them, but there are two very vicious rumours running around, and they're quite distinct and they're totally different. But it's one of those situations where I think he would be doing himself a big favour if he actually made a statement rather than the situation that he's, or the stance that he's taking.
I don't think he. Well, look, let's not. I don't want to make any assumptions or anything, but I would assume.
No, I'm not going to repeat anything.
No. My first impression would be that perhaps he's not in a frame of mind to give any sort of statement at the moment, Macca.
Well, that's probably right, because it is open knowledge now that he actually, when he had mental troubles in last year, early in the piece, he was in rehab for crystal meth. So
I don't even think that's that's alleged. Put some big alleged leads around that.
All right. Well, let's say alleged. But
I'd actually really prefer to move on from this conversation, because it's not about the Crows. We don't know anything. There's mental health issues involved, and I just don't want to talk about it, to be honest, Mac.
No, and that's fair enough too. And all I'm really saying about it is that I think he would be better off saying something.
Yeah, well, he might in due course. What else have we got?
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to raise was about the AFL.
Donkey, I heard that. And I don't have a dump button, mate, so...
No, the AFL, they are as weak as pits, because they were talking about the fact about the Adelaide situation. But they also mentioned that there were several other clubs that have broken the social distancing rule. And
yeah, tons of them.
Yeah, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not going to go any further with it. And, the reason they're not going to do it about it is there'll be too many players out of operation. So why is it always Adelaide is the bunny when the other clubs, the big clubs, get away with murder?
How can Jake Niall, Ron Connolly, Carrie Wilson, Tom freaking Brown, and all the other hacks over there look at themselves in the mirror in the morning, knowing that they're spending all their time whinging about Adelaide spending 38 seconds doing a kick-to-kick in the Barossa, when right under their freaking noses, half the bloody clubs in the AFL in Victoria are doing exactly the same thing. And they're missing it.
Because our comms director's a knob. But more than that, I haven't seen any photos of the other clubs fucking up. Like, maybe they just weren't stupid enough to get caught on a fucking golf course with 20 people standing there. I mean,
but people were talking about draft picks, about losing 4 points. I mean, get a grip.
Adelaide. Yeah.
And it was actually a 7-minute, eight blokes, a 7-minute breach of the rules where they were kicking it in and they just got too close, and that's basically all it was. It was really a non-event. Moving on from that one, though.
No, hang on, just one last thing on that. You got freaking, what's Port CEO's name? Chris O'Brien or someone?
Yep.
Some no-name that they dragged out of the bar at the Duke. Fucking comes out and says that the reason why we had to go into bloody the hubs is, not even the staunchest Crows supporter wouldn't doubt the fact that the reason we have to go into hubs is because of Barossa. Go fuck yourself. The reason why we are in financial trouble is because we're dragging around teams like you. Bloody look after your own backyard, you bloody no-name arsehole. That's my rant.
I'm totally with you on that, because Carrie Wilson on Footy Classified again this week is still blaming the Crows for the fact that the borders are closed. Well, she must now be higher than the health minister, and she must know more than the health minister does, because you, Fiend, and I, Fiend, and other people have heard the health minister say that the closed border situation had nothing to do with it.
Repeatedly, nothing to do with it.
She stated that openly, and she said that the reason that she doesn't want to open the borders is she does not want to import the COVID from those interstates, those other states that have still got live cases in them, and that's Victoria and New South Wales. So if Carrie was honest, she would say Victoria's my French, but Victoria's a fucking mess, and that's why the state South Australia won't open its borders.
Look, you got attention seaters like Niall and Connolly and all the rest of it, and the knobs from Port Adelaide. The only way they can get any fucking airtime and any bloody lines in the paper is if they refer to the Crows. Bloody Kosh and all the rest of it have got their own fucking program, and they still have to talk about the Crows to get any sort of bloody airtime. Why don't they just look after their own fucking backyards and leave us alone for 5 minutes?
Yeah, just to make sure that Fiend's punch lands on the right spot. Chris Davies was texted from one of Donkey's technical supporters listening out there. So it's Chris Davies, who's the absolute knob jockey that tried to stick the boots in. And guess what, Chris? You get Spanner of the Week. That's a new thing.
No, he gets Balfour's Pie of the Week. Yeah, that's all they Quiche of the Week, maybe. I don't know.
Quiche of the Week. Like, he looks like a drop pie, and that's all he's doing.
You're a fan of his, Donkey?
Well, I don't mind a pie.
I don't even know who he was until he bloody piped up for his 2 seconds of fame.
No. Look, mate, with a name like Chris Davies, you just fade in the background anyway. What are you, mate? Your wallpaper. Fuck off.
Anyway.
I had one more point to raise, and that was Yep, the contradictions of the AFL.
Oh my God!
One more point.
One more point. It's another hour. We'll just take a break, people. If you need to go to the toilet, or if you need to feed the kids, or move around in your chair a bit, just because kick back and relax. Macca's going to go bang.
Yeah, it's when they do actually go for Queensland and they're in their hubs. They are allowed to go down and go for walks on the beach, but they're not allowed to go into the water.
No, that'd be silly.
And then they are, where they stay, there are golf courses. And they go to train on those golf courses, and they can walk around the golf courses, but they can't play golf. I don't get that. I mean,
even though people in Queensland can play golf, and even though I've been playing golf through this whole bloody mess because we were allowed to play in pairs, like Victoria seem to think that because they're so disease-riddled in Victoria and they're not allowed to play golf, that should apply everywhere else. Bloody idiots.
Well, actually, now they are allowed to because the old prick that used to be on
Sammy Newman, he kept cutting sick until they wanted him to shut up.
I think they just took the ban off to shut him up.
Yeah.
He kept squawking, just twittering away with it non-stop. But no, that was basically it. I didn't have much to say.
That was all. Oh, disappointed.
That was basically the main points I wanted to raise.
Yeah.
Look, so at the end of the day, we've got a start date, June the 11th. The Crows remain in town to do their pre-season training. And by the way, hands up those people who think that there's going to be an absolute plethora of soft tissue injuries in the first 6 weeks of the competition. When has anyone ever started a season on 2 weeks of competitive training? It just doesn't work.
I start every basketball season with less than 2 seasons of training, and after 3 seasons, I'm happy to report that I've just completed 2 weeks of competitive training.
Yeah, but who are you competing against? What, the wife or something like that?
No. This is serious stuff. Div 5, and Div 5 social stuff. Very serious. It's an old man's league, so it's actually about how hard your elbows are.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah. It's all elbows and knees. Look, I really do think it's an issue, though. I'm struggling to see how we're not going to have nothing short of exhibition games, at least for the first month, because blokes just aren't going to be match fit. They're not going to be match fit aerobically. Doesn't matter how much training they've done individually, because you just can't beat match fitness, can you? There's an extra little bit of aerobic capacity that you get from having to do second or third efforts in match situations, and they're just not going to have any of that.
Unless they've been in CrossFit pairs of two.
That's a serious question to both of you, and then probably to the people out there in the chat. What would be your wish for the Crows this year? Would you want them to go well, or would you want them to go medium well, or would you like a tank in the background?
That's one draft pick, baby. That's not like we will rebound faster. Like, let's get to the bottom. Let's collect our trinkets and get back up the top.
Oh, I just wanted to play the kids. Just play the kids.
I think if we play the kids, that's going to happen. That we're going to get very, very close to the bottom.
But it doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
No, I'm with you. I'm with you, and that's why I raised the point, because I hope that the club has got a horrible habit of trying to hang around, and be relevant. And but by being trying to be relevant, they're not. And I think if they accept that this is the year. This is the year that we got to do what Melbourne did, but do it better. And we can do that by, we've got so many kids that haven't had a proper opportunity to show that what they can actually do. We've got some players who are borderline AFL players who get a game every week, and they're the boys to not play or rotate through. At least rotate these young boys through, and we won't have to worry about tanking. It'll just come automatically.
Yeah. Play the kids, gas them. Play the old blokes, get some games, gas them. Play the kids again, gas them. Like, let's just do it.
Well, the advantage that Matthew Nix has got this year is that he's actually got an out clause. Normally you're a first-year coach. You've either been given a mandate to rebuild, which I don't think Nix actually implicitly has, certainly not publicly. They haven't come out and said we're rebuilding, because God forbid. But just due to circumstances, he's got a complete free get out of jail free card to play the kids and say, well, look, it's a short season, we've got no choice, yada yada yada. So he has got an out clause. Whether he takes it or not, is another thing, and it'll probably be a measure of how he is long term, Matthew Nicks, as to how he treats this season, as to whether he's just come on saying the right things, or whether he's actually come on with a clear plan and a genuine desire to turn Adelaide back into a powerhouse on the field.
Well, the situation, he's got very little support now too in terms of coaches. I mean, he would have the least coaching support in the competition. I know Ben Hart will come back in again in 6 weeks' time, but that doesn't mean anything. That's just the same as when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So he's really got very little support.
Yeah.
Very little support. So, I just think, as you said, he's got to get a big get out clause for the year. This year won't count in his coaching career at all, in my opinion.
No. Well,
it's just about whether he's smart enough just to use the kids and not overplay the kids in the sense like play them every week and let them get hacked up, but rotate them through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think we talk about COVID blessings here. And we talked earlier about the extra, medico staff not being around or the extra sports science here and the 15,000 people that's in the box. But, the advantage of that is Nixie's going to have to go back to his gut footy instinct on a lot of things, and he's going to have he's already a communicator and an empath in terms of a coach anyway.
Yeah,
he's just going to have to rely on those skills a lot more. And if we've got a guy that apparently is really good at that, that's going to be a bit of an advantage for us in terms of development.
Agreed.
We don't, and not relying on having the second or third communicator. Not Don Pike, telling Campo to get Barry Crouch to come in and have a hug, and Campo telling him something completely different. It's we're cutting out some of those middlemen. And I think that could actually be a good thing, and it will actually, that you're talking straight to God, when you're talking to your footy coach, and having that could be, when we talk about going back to 90s footy, that sort of stuff, I think it could be good.
Yeah, well, I heard one of the players, and I can't remember who it was now, it was actually one of the senior players who actually said that with the reduced number of coaches, that he thought it was a good thing. He said, because we'll just get told one thing to do, not get told three different things to do. Yeah. And and you can understand that because each of those coaches, development coaches, assistant coaches, and assistant coaches, and all those people, they're all trying to justify themselves. So, if you've got, as Don said, we'll go back to a little bit more simplicity in the instructions, and it seems like the players will appreciate that.
Mm. Time will tell. Now, and talking about whether it's worthwhile doing anything, we took a poll on Twitter only a couple of hours ago, Mac. Now, Twitter's this thing on the internet, Macca.
Mate, you follow me, mate. You follow me, so
you might know it as the Darpanet, Macca.
He follows me. Don't worry about that, folks.
And I'm interested in
Macca,
you guys.
Use Lotus Notes?
He's got one of those IBM green screen computers,
I'm actually sitting here with an Alienware, mate.
He's sitting there. He thinks that the latest Windows 97 update is one of the fucking best things that's ever happened.
It's been great having you back, Macca.
My computer's with all your bloody gear together.
Oh, there's a call. There's a call. Wow.
This kitty cat's got claws.
In other words, you got sold, Macca, because there's no need to spend that much money on a computer to have good shit. Anyway,
don't care. I've got the money, mate.
on Twitter, I've asked, will the 2020 flag be tainted? Now, our Twitter followers, we got good votes in a couple of hours. Of 34 votes, 53% said yes, it's not a real season. 26% no, it's still hard to win, and 21% didn't realise there was a season going. What do you guys reckon? Is 2020 just a bust? And as Committee said, we shouldn't have a premiership and we shouldn't have a Brownlow. That's how I feel about it, actually.
Oh, no, yeah. I disagree. I think we should still have them. we're playing a football season. It might be a different type of football season, and it'll be one that'll be in people's memory forever, I think. And I don't really care who wins any of those particular awards, but by the same token, the players, they like to do their best, and they like to be rewarded, and teams like to be rewarded. So, yeah, if they win it, we should go through it. Look, we should just treat it as a football season. It's just a bastardised one because of the fact of the COVID.
Look, I'm leaning towards. I think Mac is probably right on a real level, but I really think Richmond are going to win, and I don't want them to win back-to-back premierships. So I'm going to say that it doesn't count, because I like ragging on my mates saying you're only as good as your last back-to-back premierships. So basically, only Brisbane supporters and Hawthorn supporters beat me, and I don't fucking want Tiger ones to do it either. So I'm going to say no, it doesn't count.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at it from the point of view in the future when we look back at premiership winners, and you're going to have that 2020 premier, and they're going to be compared to the 2019 premier and the 2021 premier, assuming everything's back to normal. And I just wonder whether how history will look at the 2020 season, whether they'll view it as a legit premiership or as hard fought or whatever. There's no doubt that in the moment and during the season, every player wants to win it, and deservedly so, and they should get something for completing a season and being on top. Absolutely. But whether it has the same merit or is held in the same esteem as your normal garden variety premiership, I guess time will tell on that one.
Look, for me, if it was the other qualification in here is whatever that minor premiership trophy is that gets handed out. Like, that's the one that's really compromised. The premiership is decided off a final series and usually comes out of the top four. And if we get enough games in, we're going to know who those guys are, and they're going to have a chance to thrash it out. So for me, the premiership itself is actually not under threat. It's the
qualification.
D grade. Yeah, the qualification one that's compromised. So sure, you might not slug it out, but you're still everyone's under the same challenge as you are, and they've had the same training challenges, and there are actually other things in play in that. So I'm not, I'm also a Lakers supporter, and I don't want them to say that the NBA championship's not the same. So it's hard for me to argue one and not the other. But but I just think it's the final series that decides it. It's not an EPL, and whereas I think the minor premiership should actually have more value to it, because just because you choke on grand final, that doesn't mean you're not good. But yeah, it's the final series decided. It's going to be top four, and if Richmond go back to back, they can say they've been the best team for the last 4 years, realistically. And it'd be hard to argue that COVID helped them win.
Yeah, but another thing though, I do expect though that the final should be dominated by a lot of Victorian teams, because of the fact that they're going to have a lot of their games at home where they just live in their normal beds and normal houses. They lead their normal life, and I think that's a huge advantage. And so I would expect that the Victorian teams the better Victorian teams, they should dominate the finals.
Yeah, well, that's actually probably the other point on this. There's multiple studies done on sleeping in a hotel room and the amount of quality sleep you get out of your own environment and all that other stuff.
Absolutely.
And how deep sleep actually affects the normal everyday person, let alone an athlete whose body performance is assaulting.
Yeah, recovery times and all that sort of stuff.
So there's that bit on it, but the Victorian AFL hasn't really cared about that for the last 30 odd years, so it's just more exacerbated now.
It was very ironical though when it was going to be a hub in Adelaide. That was so unfair, but now this is fair. But it's a big competition, and we're in it.
Well,
what can we do?
One thing's for sure, it's been nice to actually have a few things to talk about. We're going to have to cut it short there, gentlemen, and everybody listening on Facebook, YouTube, even someone watching on Twitch, whoever that is, awesome. And obviously the people following on Discord and giving us more information than any other source. Thanks everyone who supports us on Patreon. Sorry, don't go on.
was going to say, we didn't get into Dean lately. Do you want to thrash that one out? Or
No, did that last week. Don't want to touch that either. That's in the Jack Stephen basket. Yeah, thanks to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Thanks to all our the people that get around us every week. Donk, did you want to say thank you to something?
I just want to say thanks to my mum for bringing me up. She's always been good.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, look,
the really supportive cousins out there. So
yeah. Yeah. As we announced last week, Tuesday Night Live's coming to a close. So now that we have a season commencement, the plan is we'll have our normal fortnightly Tuesday Night Live in 2 weeks' time, which will be the 2nd of June. And then because of the timing of the season, we'll have our final farewell Tuesday night show on the following Tuesday, which will be the 9th. Of June. That'll be a bit of a blockbuster. We'll try and get everyone on who's had any sort of involvement in the podcast, in the Tuesday Night Live podcast over the years. And then we will be switching to our Sunday night show from the 14th, reviewing round 1. And you guys will, I assume, will be associated with that as well. So still a bit to play out with Tuesday Night Live, but it's been nice having you back, Macca, tonight, and Donkey as well.
Well, I've loved it, and I reckon I'm really sad about the fact that Tuesday Night Live's going to go, mate, because I've been reading the chat. I've just been catching up with there's some intelligent blokes out there, and there's some others as well, of course. But they're a great crew.
The beauty of it is that we'll have Sunday night. It'll be the end of the week. We'll have a match to review. We'll still be able to talk about the news of the week. That Sunday night show is probably going to go for 5 hours. Let's be honest, every week.
I'm on
it.
So overall, I don't think we'll be losing anything. It'll just be shifting to another night. But anyway, speaking of another night, that's it for tonight. We will have to leave it until another night. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Good night, all.